you're new in town or just new to this whole podcast thing, you're tuning in to Law by Night, the podcast that discusses all things vampiric with no fear of breaching the Masquerade. In this episode, we are going to go through everything you need to know in order to create your own vampire in Vampire the Dark Ages 20th Anniversary Edition, or V20 Dark Ages, as the Methusliahs call it these days. Before we properly sink our teeth into tonight's episode, I wish to tell you what you will need in order to follow along with me to make your first kindred in V20 Dark Ages. First and foremost, you will need a copy of the V20 Dark Ages core book, either as a physical or PDF copy if you are a weirdo or allergic to tomes or something. If you are playing the game old school with the archaic devices known as quill and parchment, you may have a friend, or two, who is willing to lend you their copy from afar, but as more and more fledglings are seeking the likes of Discord and Roll20 to play, it is highly unlikely someone will just lend you a book from afar. The easiest place to buy a physical or digital copy of V20 and other supplement books is by going to drivethroughrpg.com. I am going to presume that if you are here, you know a fair amount of VTM and have a basic understanding about how some, if not all, the clan mechanics work. You may have seen some online chronicles such as LA by Night on Geek and Sundry and the World of Darkness Twitch channel, Chicago by Night by Near Dark Studios, and Savage City by Caffeinated Conquests, or played Vampire the Masquerade Redemption on PC, which led you here, or to other online chronicles which in turn led you here anyway. I won't go too in depth with the clan laws for now. Instead, I will give a brief overview of the playable clans in V20 Dark Ages. The Assamites, who you may know as the Banu Hakim, are silent virtuosos in assassination who collect blood to bring them closer to their maker. The Bruja are either philosopher monarchs of this ancient civilization or feisty warriors. The Cappadocians or Cappadocians are the mostly peaceful clan of death who view death as a mystery to be revered, studied, and solved. The Gangrel resemble the beasts associated with vampires more than any other clan and are the ones brave enough to live in the wilds. The La Sombra are inhumane nobles who are able to manipulate the darkness around them, in addition to ruling the church and other religious sects. Clan Malkavian are broken by madness, each one ranging from unhinged to batshit crazy. The Nosferatu are hideously disfigured upon their embrace, so they hide in the tunnels with the beggars and lepers, away from the judging kine eyes. If you want to find something out, go and speak to one of them, as they hoard secrets. The Ravenos are described as gypsies by other kindred, but there is more to them than that, I assure you. They are powerful tricksters who can force the mind to see what really isn't there. Clan Setite, otherwise known as the followers of Set, adopt the idea that Set, the Egyptian god of the underworld, is their maker and do what they can to manipulate the world around them, whilst protecting their own strange artifacts. The Toreadors enjoy every sensual pleasure that unlife has to offer them. They appear to like pretty things, but it is all terribly forced to make them seem as human as possible. The Tremere became vampires through treachery and trickery, wielding supernatural blood magic and impressive knowledge. The Tzimisce distance themselves from mortality as much as possible, for they are old world lords of eldritch horror, as they are able to manipulate flesh and bone as if it was some grotesque putty. And finally, through their self-imposed entitlement and greed, the Venture are often the iron fist that rules the given city, imposing their own wills and traditions onto kindred society. V20 Dark Ages also offers players to embrace the role of the many Western bloodlines such as the Lamia, Niktuku and Kiasid, in addition to some of the Libyan, the kindred of the Ebony Kingdom, such as the Bonsam, Impudulu and Danavar, all of which will be explored in future podcast episodes. Once you have the core book and any other source books you want, you will need a character sheet. DriveThruRPG doesn't easily provide PDF copies, so you will have to look elsewhere to find an interactive PDF character sheet. For this episode, I will be using the mrgon.rocksolidshells.com interactive sheet, but there are others available, should you wish to use a different format. Now, it should be noted, you cannot use the V5 or V20 character sheets when creating your V20 Dark Ages vampire, for reasons we will soon explore. And with that preparation shenanigans biting the dust, one can now begin to create your V20 Dark Ages character. There is no system or dice roll to be made when determining your character's clan, unless you really want to. You can choose whichever one you want to roleplay in your story. VTM uses the storyteller system, which encourages players to become one with their character, to embrace them, as it were. The kindred of the world of darkness, the universe in which VTM exists, usually do not embrace mortals willy-nilly, meaning that there is a reason as to why you were embraced by your sire. What sort of person were they in life? What did they do? How did they go about doing it? Where and when were they embraced? These are just some of the questions that should come to mind when building your character, as it is their life as kind, a human, that will determine the stats and concepts. Starting at the top of the page, you should be able to fill most of these out by yourself. Name is obviously your character's name, be it their actual name or a pseudonym. Player is obviously you, and if you are having difficulties with that, I suggest you stop listening to this episode because you are clearly too young to be listening to it. Chronicle is the name of the story you're playing in, such as, I don't know, London by Night or Join the Law by Night Discord server by night. Concept is your character's notions. For example, stereotypical modern knight concepts would include Tremere Stage Magician or Nosferatu Hacker or Ventru CEO. The examples I gave are stereotypes of those clans, but there is nothing stopping you wanting to be a Bruja artisan or a Toreador farmer. In many ways, these two weirder examples fit the archetypes rather nicely, providing you use a bit of imagination. Clan is whatever clan you are in, including the clanless Caitiff. In V20 Dark Ages, Thin Bloods are not possible to play, but there is nothing stopping you from integrating V20 mechanics into V20 Dark Ages. Generation is how far or close your vampiric blood is to the mythic progenitor Cain. Vampires are one generation weaker than their sire, so if your sire was Generation 11, an ancillary, you would be Generation 12, a neonate or fledgling depending on when and where you embraced. In V20 Dark Ages, you can play as any generation other than antediluvian and lower. Most sessions encourage players to be neonates, as each older generation becomes progressively more powerful and find it much easier to break the storyteller's game. That being said, it is important to note that players who wish to start as Generation 13 in V20 Dark Ages must purchase the corresponding supernatural floor in V20 Dark Ages. All characters start at Generation 12, unless they purchase the aforementioned floor or the generation background to make you an ancillary or elder, etc. Finally, there is your sire. Your character may not have known their sire, but this piece of information, or lack of thereof, helps to build your character's backstory. If your character is sireless, think how your character has survived on their own up until the first session of gameplay. As for my example character, Abu al-Fadal in his previous life was one of the Order of Assassins, the infamous Nazari Azamale sect who lived in the mountains of Persia and Syria between 1090 and 1275. During that time, the Order spread terror throughout the Middle East through the covert murder of first Muslim and later Christian leaders. Whilst presenting himself as a culturally efficient killer, he loved being in the Order. It gave him purpose and a family he never had prior his induction. This would not last, for he and a few assassin brothers were ambushed by members of the Knights Templar at the turn of the 13th century, slaughtering them all, except for him, who was embraced by his sire Dana, who had been watching him with an eagle's eye, believing Abu al-Fadal to be a powerful addition to join the Children of Hakim, Clan Assamite. Now Abu passes judgment on not only the Cainites he is hired to kill, but the Templars that killed his mortal brethren. If you have filled out your sheet correctly, there should be 2 boxes left for you to fill out. Nature and demeanor are very similar in definition, but are very different in how one would use them, for they define how your character interacts with the world. Demeanor is how you choose to present yourself, whilst nature is how you truly are. Both nature and demeanor splint off into many archetypes, each one providing different ways for players to regain willpower, a finite resource a player may use in a tricky situation, or to resist entering frenzy, given the right circumstances. There are lots to choose from, so I will let you to discover those for yourself. But to add this new information onto Abu, he does not trust others around him, far more so than most Cainites would for each other, making him more a solitary type of character. Given his training under the Assamites and the assassins before him, he exists for orders. This mindset is best suited for him to have the soldier as his nature. Whenever he has achieved his order's objective, he may regain a point of willpower. Abu is also cold and bitter, due to his upbringing as a mortal before and after induction into the Assassins. Such training would make him feel that he is better than his peers, most likely to be the coterie he would associate himself with, which I believe warrants himself the Crumduggan demeanor. This would allow him to regain a willpower point whenever someone takes a specific negative action that he verbally predicted. Now that you have established some lore regarding your character, you should have an idea what sort of person they are when you begin to assign points into your attributes. How do they solve their problems? Fighting, thinking, or talking? How would they naturally interact with the world? The attribute section is made up of 3 categories: physical, mental, and social. You start by assigning 1 point in all the attributes, and then distribute 7 points into a primary attribute, 5 into a secondary attribute, and 3 dots into a tertiary group. If you decide to put 4 points in a particular attribute, you can choose to assign a specialty to it. However, some of the more grotesque looking clans, such as the Nosferatu and Gargoyles, cannot raise their appearance above 0. Being an Assamite of the warrior caste who is trained to kill, I do not think it would make sense for Abu to be a conversation-based character, which makes the social the tertiary group. As a trained killer, it would make sense for physical to be the primary attribute, leaving mental as the secondary group, as he would have to keep a good ear, eye and nose out for anything that may ruin his ambush. For his physical attributes, I have put 3 points in strength, 4 points in dexterity, and 3 points in stamina. For his social attributes, I have put 2 points across charisma, manipulation and appearance, and for his mental attributes, 3 points for perception, 2 for intelligence, and 3 also for wits. Dice rolls in VTM are usually made up of 1 attribute plus a skill, as there are many ways of demonstrating feats of intelligence, unless you are wanting to deadlift a donkey, for example, as that would be pure strength by my reckoning. The abilities are divided up into, from left to right, talents, skills and knowledges. Similarly to attributes, skills are prioritized in primary, secondary and tertiary groups, and no ability must get more than 3 points at this stage. No ability must get more than 3 points at this stage. If you have played V20 or other VTM games, you will notice that some of these abilities differ from VTM games with more modern settings. In addition, some skills require an area of expertise, for example, performance. Just because you are able to rock out on a lute does not mean you can sing in tune. These slight changes better reflect the times of V20 Dark Ages, but can also confuse many a new player to the game, so I shall just quickly go overview the new ones for you. Or the ye old ones, but you get what I mean. Legerdemain defines how well your character can pickpocket and perform sleight of hand. Archery replaces firearms, with bows and arrows replacing guns and other weapons that go pew pew. Commerce is about buying and selling goods, knowing trade routes, evaluating the quality of goods and negotiating of prices. Ride replaces drive, as cars didn't exist, and horse travel was all the rage. Enigmas reflect your character's ability to crack and write things in code, in addition to weird puzzle solving. Hearth wisdom is wisdom not found in books, such as predicting rainfall or what is best to banish a cold. This skill also encompasses knowing folklores and fables. Seneschal is about your knowledge of housekeeping skills. For example, a mother of Vampire Dark Ages would have been expected to manage a small household of 3 to 5 people, keeping food available, clothes clean, etc, etc. And theology regards your understanding and faith and knowledge of your faith. Again, the distribution of Abu's skills reflects his ability as an assassin, stalking and fighting his targets, whilst also considering that as a member of the Assassins, he would have and probably still be Muslim. So I decided his skills would be the primary group, talents would be the secondary group, and knowledges would be the tertiary group. Starting with talents, I gave him 2 points in alertness, 1 point in intimidation, and 3 points in awareness and brawl. For his skills, he has 2 points in archery, melee, ride and stealth all have 3 points, and for the knowledges, 3 points for investigation and 2 points for theology. Next is the advantages section, which is where the character creation process truly becomes unique. On the left plane is the disciplines, your blood-based mythical powers. Each character begins with 4 dots to spend on your disciplines, rather than the 3 found in V20 and V5, to distribute how you please. Each clan has their own 3 disciplines, but if you are playing as a caitiff, You may use any free disciplines as you like, providing the storyteller approves of it. A caitiff with potent celerity and fortitude could easily break the game, as those free disciplines work very differently as to how they work in V5. But relating this back to Abu, V20 Dark Ages allow players to play as the three types of Assamite, which are Vizier, Sorcerer and Warrior caste. This is worth noting, for each caste has slightly different disciplines. Abu is a Warrior Assamite and has access to Celerity, Obfuscate and Quietus Crustus, one of the two forms of Quietus. I have put 2 points into Obfuscate, 1 point in Celerity and 1 point in Quietus Crustus. After this we move on to backgrounds, for which you have 5 points to spend. These should support the character's concepts. A havenless Ravnos is unlikely to have lots of gold coins, for example. The core book suggests that Assamites should have a couple of points in Generation and Mentor, the generation representing their nature of diabolizing things left, right and centre. Now I had decided that Abu was going to be an Ancile anyway, so I've put 2 points in Generation. He also has 2 points in Mentor, which would either be his sire, or it might be an older Ancile who would help him out in a pinch. And as I don't particularly want Abu to be homeless, I've given him 1 point in Domain. Following this is the Virtue section, which provides the moral backbone for characters and how readily they resist the temptations of the beast. They define how they resist frenzy, with older Cainites losing said virtues as they grow older. Conscience and conviction governs a character's sense of right and wrong. Self-control and instinct is how they maintain their composure and hunger. And courage determines their gumption and their ability to withstand the dangers of fire and sunlight. You start 1 point in each and then assign 7 dots however you please. V20 Dark Ages is set in the year 1242, a time before the Anak Revolt, before the Convention of Thorns, and before the establishment of the Camarilla, Sabbat and the Anarchs. Vampires of this period were not all too concerned with blending in with the humans as much as they would be. A fledgling may have done, but they would have been encouraged to follow a path of enlightenment. They are a systematic and philosophical effort to destroy your sense of humanity, replacing it with different sociopathic ethics, rigid enough for you to exhibit an ounce of self-control. None of them allows the player to do as they please. For example, the Road of Blood, followed by many Assamites, a clan and path I deliberately chose to make this point. Similar to the Road of Kings, the Road of Blood is what makes the Assamites known as the judges of Cainites and punish the unworthy, acknowledging that some are unworthy of the blood of Cain, taking great care in their decision-making, not to punish incorrectly and to diabolize willy-nilly. Whether your character is following a path of enlightenment or humanity, the 7 points you put into them determine your character's road score and willpower. Your road is conscience/conviction, plus self-control/instinct, and your willpower is the same as your courage points. If you are struggling to tell the difference between conscience and conviction, conscience is a trait describing a character's moral judgment and stems from our attitude and outlook. Conviction represents a character's callousness and dedication to genuinely inhumane causes. These virtues prevent a vampire from succumbing to the beast by defining the beast's urges as unacceptable. As with instinct and self-control defines a character's discipline and mastery over the beast, and the ability to work with it to frightening ends. With this knowledge in mind, and knowing that Abu is going to follow the Road of Blood, his conviction is going to be 4, instinct is going to be 3, and the courage is also 3. This also means that he has 3 willpower points, for willpower equals courage at this point. And to get to the road score, it is 4 plus 3, for instinct has 3 points, conviction has 4 points, and 4 plus 3 is 7. And the various path of enlightenments also affects one's aura, and as a practitioner of the Road of Blood, Abu has the Resolve aura. A follower of the Road of Blood takes his task seriously and is dedicated to following through. This aura modifier affects willpower rolls. We have almost finished creating your V20 Dark Ages Cainite, huzzah! The last thing that needs to be done is to spend your 15 freebie points on whatever you please. If you want to buy an out-of-clan discipline, come up with a good reason as to why they should learn them, providing the storyteller allows it. There are some things to keep in mind when spending your freebie points. Discipline costs 7 points, attributes cost 5 points, blood sorcery paths cost 4 points, ability, virtue and road cost 2 points, backgrounds and willpower cost 1 point, and blood sorcery ritual costs whatever level you are going up to, so if you want to learn a level 3 blood sorcery ritual, you spend 3 freebie points. These numbers change when you spend experience after each session. An ability of expertise costs 1 point. A new ability costs 3 points. Want a new discipline? That will cost you 10 points. If you then want to level up to that discipline, you have to spend your current rating times 7. To level up a clan discipline, that is 5 times the current rating. For a new path such as necromancy or thaumaturgy, you will need 7 points for that. For a secondary path, that is the current rating times 4. To increase an ability, virtue, road or road virtue, which are your paths of enlightenments, that is the current rating times 2. To increase a blood sorcery ritual, that is the rating you are leveling up to times 2. To increase an ability, that is the current rating times 5. And to level up an attribute, that is the current rating times 4. There is also the option of buying merits and flaws that make your character all the more unique, each one being physical, mental or supernatural. Merits grant you special advantages that make you stand out from the rest of the Kindred and the Chronicle. Flaws are the exact opposite and are worth adding to your character sheet anyway. After all, no one is perfect. Each merit has its own point cost expenditure, and flaw adds a certain number of freebie points you can spend. You can purchase as many merits as you can afford, but you can't have more than 7 points of flaws. These 15 points imply that the K-Knight is freshly embraced, but Abu is an Ancillay, who would be naturally stronger than a neonate. V20 Dark Ages doesn't provide any guidelines as to what to do in such a circumstance, so I am forced to refer to the main V20 core book, you know, the big green one, which I presume you all have if you are listening to this tutorial. On page 79 of the original V20 core book, it suggests that a kindred should have a number of discipline dots equal to the square root of their age, which in the case of Abu, the square root of 100 is 10. It also states that older neonates are given up to 35 XP to spend, Ancillay have between 75 to 220 points to spend, Elders are given between 250 to 600 points, and Methusliahs have over 1,000 points to spend, which I think is a little bit overkill, but what do I know? Your storyteller would be able to properly guide you during this venture, and as I am the storyteller of Tutorial by Night, this tutorial to you, I have decided to give Abu 100 points to spend on making him a proper Ancillay. So Abu has the physical merits Without a Trace and Sturdy. He has the mental merit Common Sense and the supernatural merit Inoffensive to Animals. He has 2 flaws, the mental flaw Vengeance and the social flaw Hunted, which, if I've done my math correctly, should give him 98 experience points to spend on everything else that he pleases. I have given him 3 additional points of willpower, for I was not happy with him only having 3 points, so he now has 6 willpower points. He has an additional point of stamina and an additional point of wits, so they now are at 4. He has an additional point of brawl, 3 points of empathy, an additional 2 points of intimidation, 2 points of crafts, 3 points of etiquette, an additional point of melee, and an additional point of stealth, and he has now 2 points of occult. I have also decided to amp up his disciplines, and I have not taught him any new ones, although the temptation was great, I assure you of that. He has 2 additional points of obfuscate, and 3 additional points of celerity, and 2 additional points of quietus crusticus. Being a 100-year-old assassin who travels around the world a bit, I thought it would be worthwhile giving him 4 points of contacts and an additional point of resources, as he would need money to do this, that and the other. And unless I have missed anything out and have done my math completely wrong, he should have 1 point of experience left, which he can then use in future sessions. There is also the matter of your blood pool, which is the only resource determined by the use of a D10. Roll it, and whatever it lands on is your starting blood for the session. And once you have finished adding freebie points and rolling your D10, you can finally say that you have made your first VTM V20 Dark Ages Kindred. Yes, the book has all that you need to understand the character creation process, but I have found it sometimes helps to have someone walk you through the process, rather than have your storyteller nag you 100 times because you just got it wrong for the umpteenth time. To be kept updated, follow the Lore by Night VTM Twitter and Instagram pages to find out when we will upload each episode. You can also find out by subscribing to the YouTube channel and clicking on the little bell, as you'll be immediately notified when the latest episode is live. Until next time, farewell.